Hello and welcome back to Yapping About Sports and a little bit of late night yapping tonight as the Tigers were on the West Coast in Sacramento with a 13-1 emphatic victory over the Athletics, as they should, with the Athletics being one of the bottom three teams in the American League. So good positive win. They score 11 runs between the 8th and ninth inning, 7 runs in the 8th, 4 runs in the ninth. Dylan Dingler, Kevin McGonigle, and Max Clark. Max Clark, in his debut game, records his first career hit, his first career RBI, has multiple base hits. McGonigle has multiple base hits. Both McGonigle and Clark and Dingler all on base multiple times tonight. Dingler with a grand slam. McGonigle with an RBI, had multiple RBIs as well. Just all around a positive effort, and even with all the trade deadline looming and Casey Myers getting scratched from his start on a bullpen day started by Tyler Holton, the Tigers managed to only give up 3 hits and 1 run to the Athletics, win this game with ease, especially after that. I mean, waited for the offense to show up late, but better late than never. 13 runs after scoring 14 runs. I mean, the offense needed to go a little bit younger, and you saw that now that you're alleviating the at-bats that you saw from McKinstry, from Vierling, because Vierling has no choice now but to hit the injured list. Looks like and sounds like he will be outside the minimum of the 10-day IL for him and his IL stint. But, hey, this is going to be, it should still be a different team after Monday afternoon, after reports come out today that it should be a sale. It should be at least 3 or 4 players out of the top payroll should be gone, or at least out of the majority high end of where your team is at. Skubal, Mize, and Torres sound to be the 3 names most being shopped around right now by the Tigers. But it does sound like that, as they should be pretty driving up a pretty good bargain for Tarek Skubal, because, to boil it down in simplest form for this trade deadline specifically, you have an opportunity still to make your team better. You still have an opportunity to mathematically, yes, you are still going to mathematically be in contention. But if your bullpen doesn't look any different following the trade deadline, or if you don't have any more faith in your starting pitching or relief pitching, and if there's no different faith than what you have right now, or how your bullpen is currently constructed, now that you find out that Will Vest is one of the names that will be missing the remainder of the 2026 season, you have a lot of work to do. And regardless if there's baseball or not in 2027, I think that you have a good chance to come out in April and come out in May and compete, and truly compete in the American League, especially after seeing how low the American League is. And I'm not going to lie, individually, I'm a little frustrated. I'm frustrated that the Tigers are not in first place in the American League Central. I'm frustrated that this bullpen seemed to have not been taken serious right now, especially after last year's. You go back a year ago from this point where the Tigers were, they were the first team to 60 wins, were entering the trade deadline as a competitor, needing to bolster that bullpen and get a little bit of help in the lineup. Neither of those two things happen, and we see what happens losing to Seattle in Game 5 as we did. So is there still a lot of room to work and make this team better? Oh, 100%. And is this team going to compete? No, I really don't. I don't believe so. I don't think that this team, if you were able to keep as many at-bats with Dylan Dingler, Kevin McGonigle, and Max Clark in the lineup, we shall see. But you also have 3 names that were all-stars between those two, and you add on Riley Green. And don't know when Kerry Carpenter makes his return to the lineup, but I do think that you do have to make some answers and answer some questions about those types of names. Colt Keith, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, and Spencer Torkelson. Still, have they done positives this season? Yes, but are they at the threshold, and are they at the expectation level that we want for the type of players that we had? You have expectation for these players to be franchise altering and franchise changing, and for them to be the reason you end up winning baseball games. And that hasn't came through to fruition as many times that I think fans and myself would have liked to this point, with as many games under their belt that Torkelson, that Green, that Carpenter, and Keith now have together, or should have together in the lineup. So But no complaints tonight. 13 runs compared to just one for the Athletics. You have Max Clark in the action, Kevin McGonigle in the action, Dylan Dingler hits a grand slam. And whenever your offense goes for 10-plus runs and your pitching staff gives up less than 5 hits total, I think you're in a very good spot. But this should be the expectation for a team when you play the Athletics, where they're at in the standings, where they're at in payroll, the type of lineup that you have. So we shall see. It really does sort of suck, and with comments being made from Casey Mize tonight to the media, it sounded like he wanted to be out there. He doesn't like taking this risk-adverse approach and not knowing what the future holds. But I think you're treating your team outside the normal, and in itself creating a little bit of distraction by scratching Mize as you do tonight. Having so many players that you know, especially with Torres, Mize, and Skubal, and that's what it boils down to for me, is that Scott Harris and this front office have an opportunity to make this team better and to play with some youth. Finally rotate some prospects in and see what they have, first being Max Clark, obviously a full season right now of Kevin McGonigle. Kevin McGonigle also hits a home run in tonight's ball game. And you have to just focus on right now. Today was a good night. Tonight was a good night. We don't know what tomorrow holds, don't know what the future holds in terms of what Monday by 5 or 6 o'clock may bring. But all I know is that, Scott Harris, you have a job to do, and you have an opportunity to make your team better by dealing Tarek Skubal at the deadline, by dealing Casey Mize at the deadline, and by dealing Gleyber Torres at the deadline. I really don't know who would want Kenley Jansen, but if you're able even to flip him as you did for Jake Rogers and get a minor league AA or AAA prospect for him that you can maybe work with, and he can maybe find his way to the major league level someday. Who knows? That may be in the cards. That may not be in the cards. But what I do know is that the Detroit Tigers are 13-1 winners. For one more day are 52-58, 6 games under 500. And again, for any of you that still have some form of hope for whatever reason on the 2026 Detroit Tigers season, I would think that it hinges right now. I mean, you have a lot of opportunities coming up. Your next homestand isn't until the midweek of August, and it's against the Guardians and the White Sox, your first and second place teams in the American League Central, and 2 teams ahead of you, especially in the wild card if you're the Cleveland Guardians. So for me, your hope shouldn't really be as high until the Tigers reach 500, but right now they need to be at least 2 games over 500. So you have 8 more wins to go just to be at the level and surface level of a playoff team with less than 60 games remaining in this season. So that's what you have to boil down. You have to stay in the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that this team is not a playoff team, and that you're going to have teams like the Twins and just 3 teams in your own division that are looking at playoff spots ahead of you. And you also have the defending American League champions, not sure what they will do, the Toronto Blue Jays, as they played tonight in Toronto. But yeah, really just focusing on right now because that's all you can do. There's no reason to go through the hypotheticals and who gets traded, where they get traded to, what the haul might be. Is that it is this, that the Tigers have an opportunity to get MLB ready players and make this current team ready and see what they can play around with, and also have a chance to make the future a better team. And I think if you have that opportunity, you have to pull the trigger on whatever the best offers that come your way. And if Tarek Skubal is still a Detroit Tiger after this trade deadline and the Detroit Tigers do not win the World Series, I believe that's a failure. I believe that's a fireable offense. I believe that you need to, in one way, shape, or form, create value. And even if it turns into a Justin Verlander situation, at least on paper, you got a couple top 100 prospects. You got an MLB-ready arm. You got controllable players at this deadline that could have made that make you better for the future. And you understand where you're at. You understand ultimately what turns into a failure on the Tigers' part and not being able to bring home a World Series with another Cy Young Award winner, with more All-Stars, with more high-level young talent coming through the system. And is it Miguel Cabrera, Prince Fielder, Victor Martinez level? No, I don't think we get that 3, 4, 5 in the lineup together, or at least on that scale or that level again. But what you can focus on is that tonight the Tigers won 13-1. They got one game better in the standings. They have Max Clark and Kevin McGonigle in the future lineup, and we shall see where this team ends up. I'm not going to harp on them too much, really much anymore, because we all know what the reality of the situation is. We all know that it's disappointing, to say the least, that they are going to fail to make the postseason, and it's going to take another miracle run, even worse, it feels like, than 2024, even though they were still in a similar spot in the 2024 campaign. But hey, you have two more games against the Athletics. You play the Giants and the Mariners, teams that you will be able to beat. You have winnable games and winnable series in there if your bullpen holds and your starting rotation and your lineup continue to do what they did these past couple of games and series. So that's what I have for you guys today. Late night yapping, Tigers 13, Athletics 1, Detroit 52-58. Max Clark makes his debut. Tigers only allow one run. Carpenter on the IL. Will Vest out for the season. But hey, for at least tonight, you can go home, put your head on the pillow, and know that the Tigers were winners for at least one more day. Have two more games remaining against the Athletics, and then you have the trade deadline that looms after Saturday and Sunday on Monday night. So should be a completely different looking team going from Sacramento to Seattle. So with that being said, thank you all again for watching and listening. Still on Apple and still on Spotify for those of you that have been listening there. But thank you all once again, and I will see you guys again later.